Hello, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. This is Neil, formerly known as the Great Apostate, formerly known as the GTA, coming at you. I'm back working. I've been off during the apocalypse of the coronavirus. It's not over yet, as we all know, and I'm still just struggling on. I took 5 weeks off work. My wife is doing a brilliant job teaching the kids at home, and I've just been trying to keep myself out of the way from annoying them all. Volunteered for the health service for a while. Pardon me, for the NHS. I did. Some guy tried to stab me. People always try to stab me. It's bullshit. But it did happen. I told him he couldn't come in to an area that he wasn't allowed in. And he got angry, a little tiny man. And he tried to stab me. And it didn't go well for him, thankfully. Because I'm still here, and he's not. Well, police took him away. I'm sure he's still in the country, like. Oh, dear. So I got thinking, anyway. We're listening to a fantastic audiobook at the moment. I think, what's it called? I forget the name of it, but it's by that Megan Phelps girl who left the Westborough Baptist Church. And it's her autobiography. And it's someone who's written their own autobiography of leaving a cult or high control group. I felt so many similarities between my own experience as a Jehovah's Witness and hers as a member of the Westborough Church. What I found, I heartily recommend the book itself. I forget. I'm gonna mess it up, but I'll send you. Put a link below to the name of the book and where you can get it. And not mine, hers. It's good. Although mine's good too. Very poorly edited though. Anyway. So I was looking at her book and it was absolutely fascinating. What was even more amazing was that when her and her sister, not to spoil the story, spoiler alert, when her and her sister left the cult, they moved in and rented a room with a couple in a town called Deadwood. And wouldn't you know it, they were a Jehovah's Witness couple. And they spent their entire time, discussing doctrine, and they started going to Jehovah's Witness meetings and all kinds of stuff. And it made me think back to when I left, how one of the very first people to speak to me was the Mormons. And I started studying with the Mormons because I wanted, the right church. And it was only when I said to myself, as Megan Phelps, I think, sort of did herself, that I'm going to have to put the same critical thought into what I believe, or into what they believe, as I did into what I believe. Or else I'm really just a hypocrite, aren't I? And then, of course, you discover that, it's all nonsense too. But it's a fantastic book, and I would definitely recommend you read it. I also was thinking recently about how long the tendrils, the tentacles of being a Jehovah's Witness last with you. Because when you're a Jehovah's Witness, you think, everything you do is right. Or at least if the elders say it's right, it's right. And that's a huge comfort in a way, to know that, if the elders said it's okay, I'm not in trouble. I'm not in trouble from God. I'm not in trouble from man. If it goes wrong, that's just the way it was. Because that's, I asked. The elders said it was okay. And then when you leave the witnesses, you sort of you just go into the world. And there's still tons of stuff about the world, for lack of a better phrase, that I find disgusting and disagree with. And I'm still, even when I was an agnostic, I don't think I'm an agnostic anymore. I think I believe in God, at least a God. I'm not entirely sure still. But at least I think the arguments are much better. But there's still so much about the world around me that I find really gross and disgusting. And probably things that I still have in common with Jehovah's Witnesses. My cultural sort of norms. But at the same time, it's much more difficult, because you're now suddenly, as the Jehovah's Witnesses always claim, the people who leave the witnesses are trying to do, they're trying to become their own God. They're trying to say what's good and what's bad. And in a way, that's what you have to do, because who else is going to do it for you? You have to go out. And I notice that witnesses in general, we all fall into sort of loads of traps. So many of us will go straight on to other religions. Many of us will go straight on to like militant atheism. Many of us will get really trapped in politics. And I'm as guilty as the next man, as that for that. Without, a really good critical thought, and that's a problem that's definitely affected me. One thing I've started doing, and I would urge you to do the same, I took Facebook off the home screen of my phone. I've only done it recently, but I took it off this home screen of my phone just to say, listen, I've had enough. I don't want to constantly be annoyed. And I did the same thing with newspapers. So there's newspapers that have a really good trick, and I think, of getting attention. One of the attention is, I think it's called fear porn. And what they do is they just try to frighten you constantly so that you'll read, oh no, what's the next thing? It's the coronavirus, it's the economy, it's the killer fucking bees that are coming. Oh, that's a monetized video gone. Anyway, you get the point. Daily Mail's very good for this fear porn. Other ones are just political garbage, but you know what I mean. It's also this attempt to sort of stop people from ever uniting. And I've noticed that's something that you see in the world around you. There's a desperate attempt. It's like they build you up so that, take Brexit, for example, in the UK. So you were either against it or you were for it. But then even the people who were for it, as soon as they got it, the newspapers and stuff, then suddenly they had reasons to attack the people who voted for it. And you thought, well, hang on a second. It's almost like you just want us to constantly be at each other's throat. And that's true. And regarding the long tendrils, sorry for rambling, there are long tendrils of being a witness. One thing I did notice was how it's affected me, and I posted this on the Vast Apostate Army. So many, many moons ago, when I was 11, 12 years old, and still obviously a good Jehovah's Witness. In fact, I'd been baptized a year or two by that point. I was back in those days, that was quite a young baptism. Now they're baptizing babies while they're still in their moms, practically. So those days have changed. But I was a pretty young baptized kid, baptized brother. That was a big deal to me to be called a baptized brother. And my dream was I was going to go work in the New York Bethel when it was there. And the closest I got was protesting at the Warwick Bethel. Oh, not quite the same thing, eh? But I did notice that. So back when I was 12, my sister, who was 17, 18, she got this fellowship, and I took that really hard because I was always closest with my sister, and that was really tough for me. But at the same time, I was a Jehovah's Witness, and we all know how that game's played. And so she was disfellowshipped, and I shunned her like a good witness. I even remember writing her a little letter, telling her I couldn't talk to her. And one of the reasons why I wrote the letter, I wasn't actually urged to write the letter. That's true, I wasn't. But the reason I wrote it was because she stopped being a witness, and she immediately almost immediately married a guy, became a Roman Catholic, got married in Rome. He wasn't a particularly good guy, but she wasn't to know that then. But so that's how that went, and I was really quite affected by how you could leave, the truth, and then automatically just go off and join the Catholics, which seemed to be, as we believed, like it was the mother of all bad ideas religiously. And so I wrote her that letter and wouldn't talk to her, and we didn't talk for years. I saw her once or twice when as she went on to have children. I'd see them periodically, every maybe 6 months or a year. And that was the height of our experience. And then later on, when I left the witnesses, that corresponded to her having problems in her marriage. And I immediately said, hey, listen, I've got my own house. Come to me. Come and live with me. And she did. She lived with me for about a month. And then my dad and my brother and me, we helped her get another house. And we helped her move. We helped her do everything we could. We ended up getting into a big argument with her ex-husband, her now ex-husband, and he sued us. So that wasn't a good day, but that cost a lot of money. But all that happened, and I remember, there's a big lorry coming by, so let me pause this for a second. Pause and unpause. There's no point you hearing a milk lorry going by. I want to see Northern Ireland, by the way. It's beautiful. Check this out. This is Northern Ireland. Isn't it gorgeous? You can see it from my van. That's about it, but it's very pretty. Anyway, moving along. So anyway, years come by, and I was really proud because I had stood up for my sister, helped her in her time of need, apologised very, very profusely for, you know, what had happened in the past. But one thing I did notice, and was that I always had this tremendous guilt for what had happened. You know, how I had treated my sister, how I had betrayed her. And I felt so bad about that. I always did. And it wouldn't really go, it only really went away when my own children, my own daughter got to the age of 12. And I realized exactly how young that is and how unable a 12-year-old is really to be responsible for their actions. And not to minimize, you know, any hurt that I caused, but it is simply true that it's not a guilt that should haunt you in later life. And the funny thing is that subsequent guilt led me to treat her in ways which I probably shouldn't have, you know. I mean, she left the way, and once she came back into our lives, she, for instance, went to my mum and dad's church, and mum and dad had built up all these new relationships, friends and buddies and stuff, and it was lovely for them because they're getting older, and you know, they were getting older at the time, and they'd left the witnesses, so they'd left their whole family and their whole friends group, and then suddenly they had you know, no one to talk to, and so they left the witnesses too, and they made friends at this new church. And my sister started going to this church, and she would constantly, you know, at a drop of a hat, tell her new friends about her terrible upbringing, her terrible being shunned by her parents and her family. And of course, this would instantly change how they would feel about about my parents. And my parents lost many friends over it. And they were humiliated and embarrassed and ashamed and felt, you know, and hurt. And at the time, I mean, you think to yourself, oh, yeah, this is terrible what she went through. We just have to, you know, suffer in silence. Oh, there goes a car. But, of course, as time has gone on, you realise that what you should have done is just, you know, shouted at them and told them, would you wise up? But, and that's life. And the funny thing is, you know, as time has gone on, what I thought was this, you know, profound friendship, we were all back to normal. It wasn't really, because Jehovah's Witness tendrils still exist. This ability to just cut each other off, it's really easy. I mean, I feel it too. You just go, yeah, okay, whatever, we're done, bye. And I mean, I've barely spoken to my sister now in 2-3 years over a nonsense argument about one of her daughter's boyfriends, and that's it. So you don't, you know, that's it. When you're not friends, that's it. Bye bye. And it just makes you think, like, what a long-lasting damage the Jehovah's Witnesses cause. And you would hope that you'd have this sort of family that I do see in a lot of people, you know, where cousins and nephews and second cousins, they're all friends with each other. But no, that's not to be. And I would love to know in the comments below, if anybody watches this, did you find this yourself? Did you find that, you know, were you able to... or did you find meaningful relationships, quite difficult to maintain? Because I certainly have. And it's not just one-sided, you know. I mean, like I said, I mean, I've made multiple attempts to sort of mend bridges, but, you know, they're pretty much shunned. They're pretty much spurned every time. And you just think, well, what's the point? What's the point? Because at the end of the day, you've got your own family to raise. And but then the problem is, you think to yourself, well, at some point, we've got to stop this cycle. Because if you don't stop the cycle, what's going to happen? Your kids are going to fall out with you. And then you'll be a 60-year-old man who doesn't get to see his grandkids. That's not nice. Anyway, I'm going to go back to work, have a think about it. Love your opinions. And I hope you're all doing well during this apocalypse. The Jehovah's Witnesses must be absolutely thrilled. They're a bit bored, though. This is not how the world ends with a bang, but with a whimper. Okay, guys? Thank you very much. Like and subscribe if you like and subscribe. Great apostate out.